We are halfway into 2024 and I recently felt like I just wasn't painting enough. At least not finished pieces. I have so many sketches, client work and the occasional large project for myself, but it felt slow and kind of stagnant. So I gave myself an art challenge. If you find yourself sketching aimlessly, thinking about paintings you want to start but never quite get around to, or if you're unsure what to draw next, treating a weekend like a miniature personal art retreat can really help with that artistic block. At least it helped me to get back into the flow of painting, even if one of the pieces I created frustrated me to no end. Let's start from the beginning. We had a 3-day weekend coming up here in Korea with questionable weather that made me want to stay indoors with my cat, sketchbooks and empty canvas. I call this my art retreat, but you don't need a completely free stretch of time, because who even has that? You'll see that I wasn't just painting for 3 days straight. I just determined that the free time I did have would be used for a series of paintings. A regular weekend or even a single day can already serve as an art retreat for yourself. Though I will get into why going over multiple days helped me so much. The start of this challenge was on the evening before the first day off. I opened my sketchbook, which already had ideas for a series of paintings on Korean mythology that I wanted to expand on. Even if your own art retreat is a single day, I'd really recommend to have an evening before that day also dedicated to drawing. I started after dinner after having finished all my work and sent the last few emails for that day, which might be much more difficult for you depending on your situation, so no pressure. Even if it's just 20 minutes of thumbnail sketching, or preparing your canvas or paper and setting up your desk so that it looks nice and is ready, that's enough. It feels amazing to arrive at your desk the next day and not having to think, procrastinate with searching for references or doodling first ideas, but to just start the day off right. In my case, I actually ended up sketching a whole bunch of ideas and then drawing those on canvases already since I felt so excited to get started. And I was at my desk until well after midnight. I'm generally all about moderation. Art challenges that demand endless hours spent drawing or very strict deadlines can lead to burnout, and balance is the key to a sustainable art practice for me. But occasionally, I just want to get into the flow. My drawings actually get better the longer I warm up, and it feels like such a privilege to have uninterrupted drawing time. So I got a bit carried away. With all those sketches from the previous night, I just had to spray on fixative the next morning. Day 1 of my little art retreat was the day I had the least free time running errands of all kinds until late that afternoon. When giving yourself an art challenge, or, I prefer that more positive wording, an art retreat weekend, that doesn't mean you put everything else on hold, which is just not realistic most of the time. I just knew that once I would get home, these paintings were waiting for me, with no distraction or procrastination. That afternoon and evening, I focused on embellishing all the canvases. This Mythology Art series I'm working on always has gold leaf or copper leaf for the mystical elements, like the animal claws of the mythical figures that have transformed. Preparing so many canvases at once feels fitting for an art retreat weekend, but also it's so much more efficient. Working on several paintings at once saves so much time that I'd usually spend rearranging my desk, looking for materials, setting up and cleaning up. Here, I got to bring all my embellishing supplies, my transparent gesso and the brushes I use for all of those, and just focus on that task for a couple hours, hopping from canvas to canvas while adhesive for the metal embellishment was curing, or while transparent gesso was drying. Later that night, I did start the underpainting for the first portrait. This one is a variation of my Wedding of the Bear, which is inspired by the myth of Eunyo, the bear from a Korean creation myth who wanted to become a woman and passed a test given by the divine king Hwano. While she turns into a human, she later also ascends to goddess-like status, depending on which version of the myth you follow. And the painting is both a love letter to all the myths of transforming animals around the world, which I've loved since I was a child, and a commentary on how those tales then usually end. The transformation itself is the journey, and the now women don't go on any other adventures. Eunyo gets married to the divine king who'd allowed her transformation in the first place, and becomes the mother of the founder of Korea. It's why in my larger painting she's garbed in green and red for her wedding, and while I hinted at her bear nature in the background, she looks polished and almost artificial. For this smaller version, I wanted her shown just after her transformation, still clothed in earthy colors, closer to her bare nature, as if she just stepped out of a cave. And this tiny painting would be a huge struggle for the weekend, but we'll get to that. The second day was my actual painting day, where I just stayed home and focused on art mostly. The smallest painting is this tiger in profile. The tiger is from the same myth as Eunyo. While the bear passes the test to become a human, the tiger fails and stays an animal. In the painting, the bear faces the viewer, but the tiger looks away to the side, returning to nature. The actual myth is actually a bit funny in how much the test seems rigged against the tiger's success. Both animals are tasked to stay in a cave for 100 days, eating nothing but garlic and mugwort plants. Staying in caves and not eating is pretty much a bear's hibernation, while the tiger is really not made for eating garlic. For this series of paintings, I'm using the same color palette with small variations for each. The main colors are burnt sienna, burnt umber, raw umber, turquoise green, cobalt green, titanium white, Mars black, and some ultramarine blue for cooling down the green colors. I focused on blocking in all the important shapes with an angled brush. Those are great for small formats, painting lines, sharp edges, and filling in larger areas, all with the same brush. I was at that point also testing out a new set of brushes that I'd bought and wanted to see how all these flats, pointed rounds, angled flats and filberts would deal with the small format. Spending the entire art challenge time with a similar color palette was actually really fascinating. I felt like I became more and more familiar with how these mix together. And instead of completely switching up my palette every few hours, I got to rebalance and discover variations within this limited selection. Each painting still looks distinct, the small bear woman mostly focused on brown tones, the lunar faces piece very cool and muted with cobalt turquoise as the main color, and the small tiger combining cobalt green and burnt sienna. You might notice that I'm not painting the fourth portrait I'd prepared that first night. I knew from the beginning that finishing all 4 of these in a single weekend would be pushing it, and wanted to take my time with the largest portrait. So while I used the time when I was in the flow of sketching to draw the outlines for that portrait, and embellish the canvas at the same time as the others, I let that one wait for some late-night painting sessions over the coming week. Something else you might notice, that first painting of the bear woman just after transformation wasn't going well. There's the ugly face so many paintings go through and that you just have to bear with, no pun intended, until you reach the other side. But this was different. I didn't like the mood of it, the expression on her face was all wrong, the doll-like features too polished and cute. I kept repainting details over and over again and have to admit that I got completely stuck at this point. So there came a point where it was better to just step away and end it for the day. A bit of a frustrating note to end the day on, to be sure, and I have to admit I felt like I'd failed at something. Failed at my art retreat, in a way. Feelings about our creative projects aren't always rational. They shouldn't be even, and there's no use in wallowing in that. I came back the next morning with a bit of stubbornness and an urge to start fresh. And guess what? It worked. Instead of trying to correct what could be called mistakes, I knew I just needed to capture that expression, that feeling I wanted, from scratch, and needed a clean slate. I'd never before just painted over a face like this, and was surprised how easy it was in the end. An art process where we hit a wall, where we feel stuck, still teaches us important things, so that we can step over that wall once we aren't just staring at it in frustration. And now I really like this very toned down portrait, using mostly just raw umber, titanium white and a smidge of Mars black. While I love a day all about painting, and it can be incredibly helpful to get into that artistic flow, there can also be a point where you're just treading water, or pushing that Sisyphus rock up the mountain only for it to roll back down again. To stay with the mythology metaphors. I also used some cadmium red light and transparent yellow iron oxide to warm up skin tones or push the saturation of those brown shades. The rest of that morning on day 3 felt like a reward for having finished that portrait that had been bothering me, adding fun textures to the other paintings, individual playful brush strokes. Finishing up 3 paintings at once is an amazing feeling. Final details are always such a rewarding and relaxing part of the painting process, and it felt like a celebration of having gotten to finish these over the weekend. In this color study, I wanted to test the color combination of burnt sienna and cobalt turquoise and cobalt green, 2 newer additions to my palette. The tiger stripes in green instead of black, the same color as the mugwort plants the tiger was supposed to eat, which also shape the forest-like background. This is the smallest canvas I've ever painted on, and the cotton canvas texture was quite the struggle to paint details on at this size. I only had the morning free for painting that day and happily left the paintings to dry and, a week later, varnish. Acrylics dry quickly, but I'd been using some open acrylics with lower drying times mixed with the regular ones, so I waited a bit longer than usual when it came to varnishing. The large Ungno painting, with even more slow-drying paints and medium in it, had also dried in the meantime, and I got to varnish the whole set together. For someone who often spreads out personal paintings over weeks and months, chipping away at them at night or before work in the early morning, this little art challenge felt wonderful, and painting several pieces at the same time taught me a lot about control, how to switch from one painting and blending style to another, looking at them with fresh eyes, and in the end finishing with something I was happy with. It also showed me some weaknesses, my inconsistent portrait style, for example, that I really want to practice more. These aren't perfect paintings at all, but they were amazing for practice, learning more about different canvas and panel types, my new pigments, cobalt green especially, and also gave me confidence that I could actually finish paintings in a limited amount of time, if I just gave it a try. I hope you enjoyed my little art vlog for this long weekend of paintings, and I'd love to hear if you've ever done a similar art time for yourself, or if you'd like to give it a try. I can definitely recommend it, especially if you tend to reach for a sketchbook and doodles and can be a bit scared of starting and finishing actual paintings. Some of these paintings have been turned into a set of prints, and the smallest miniature paintings are available in my shop if you'd like a tiny piece of art inspired by Korean mythology for yourself. Let me know if you'd like to see the painting process for that larger tiger portrait as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon with another art video.